Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first Future of the Fortress read-along for 2024. If you've never encountered one of these before, the Future of the Fortress is basically a very long forum thread on the Bay 12 forums where Toady1 talks with the community about Dwarf Fortress. Before we actually dive in, we're going to read their kind of monthly stats that they talk about, how many copies the game has sold, and then we're going to dive into the actual Q&A. If you would like to take part in the Q&A yourself, there is a link to the thread in the description of this video, and then all you have to do is make a forum account for the Bay 12 forums, which might take a little bit for it to get approved. Once it's approved, you can then take part in the monthly Future of the Fortress. Let's dive in. Mission status. Three-Toe writes, "What's to say about the year gone past? That's one I'll remember. The year my other brother died. There is nothing really good to say about this year, except that we got paid. It really does take a lot off your mind, and it opens up a lot of opportunities. But can it really bring back someone who died so young? There are a lot of things we are going to be able to do now. We can travel the world on our own dime. How much does it really matter when you lose someone who mattered so much? I'll tell you, you are the only ones who are holding us together. Without you, we would still be working thankless jobs that were far from rewarding. We are getting older, and friends and family passing away is something we'll have to get used to. This was a lot, though. I have to ask if my wife will ever be happy again. Do I think any amount of money will fix that? With your help, I can sure try. Congratulations to the generous. Three-Toe." My condolences, Zach. Tarn continues on with fun with numbers, and he says, "Yes, sir. What a year. Hopefully the next one will be more relaxed and see us finish out adventure mode, and then get into new stuff for everybody. I guess relaxed might not be possible since we have ourselves another deadline, but it'll be good to get through the basic adventure mode update. With the winter sale, we hit 27,000 copies sold in December. As expected, a pretty good chunk." And the very first questions for the Q&A itself, Eric Blank writes, "How was Thanksgiving for you, Toady? And did you get any cool Christmas presents?" And a curious cat asked about the most important, Lutefisk. And Tarn responds with, "There was several family parties and such. Lutefisk even tasted good this year. Everybody was shocked. Annie made us cool hoodies in the style of those pig hoodies I wear, with the pigs in a grid, but with the dwarf face in place of the pigs." And the next question comes in from Asarl, and they say, "So my question is, was this ever a feature that civs would initially have similar aesthetic genetic traits, or was this all headcanon created by coincidences? If so, was it changed?" And Tarn's response is, "I think we used to have more similarity within the starting group of civs. Yeah, then we removed that and made the starting group more variable. There should still be inherited traits, but there's also the matter of the non-figure pops, which had a set of traits. But I think we leaned away from colors for that until we could point it at more. If we ever decided to do that, since it's potentially frustrating, especially in adventure mode where we eventually added a full randomization button anyway, it's complicated to figure out where that should land. Similar to gender norms, etc." The next question comes in from Plump Helmet Man, and they ask, "Will the upcoming procedural portraits be applied to other humanoid creatures besides the playable races, such as semi-megabeasts?" And Tarn's response is, "We're going to do what we can. Ideally, everybody would get portraits that reflect variations, wounds, and equipment, but that's a huge, huge lift. We'll be lucky to have portraits beyond the playable critters, main races plus animal people for the initial portrait debut." The next question comes in from Dark Hog, and they say, "Will you add graphics RAWs to the classic version? So implementing custom graphics packs that are compatible with both premium and classic will be easier? I'm talking about the TXT files in vanilla _graphics that are present in premium but not in classic, not the art itself." Tarn quotes Putnam's response first, so I will read it, and she says, "So the problem here. Those would cause errors since the graphics files themselves won't be present. I'm pretty sure Toadie's said that they're free to upload or whatever, so ideally they should be shown on the wiki somewhere. And Tarn's response is, yeah, the exact TXT files for the graphics stuff are all public domain, as Putnam said, and I don't include them in Classic because there'd be a ton of error messages and possibly actual errors as well. The next question comes in from Kontaco, and they say, will the attire represented in the portraits enable distinction of units based on things like social standing, culture, etc.? Will weapons and shields also be shown in the portrait? And do you think that generated mythologies would be as extensive as the current world gen history, i.e. spanning hundreds to thousands of years of current events and characters? And do Entons have two personalities or souls? And Tarn's response to this pseudo-multi-parter is, there isn't any additional information attached to it, though social standing is represented for some critters by item quality, which will appear, and culture chooses which of these items are available. But the more subtle variations don't yet have cultural links, and that won't happen until I attach worlds to clothing and variations, I expect. We've talked a bit about weapons and shields. I'm not sure if we'll get there. It'd already be supportable for mods, I think, since the full body layers can show those things and it's the same format. If the distinction between mythologies and the world histories is the existence of the world tile level maps, then I doubt it, since we won't be able to spatially distinguish the same number of historical figures. But there are gray areas as the maps come into focus. It's still not entirely clear what year 1 is, or if there's going to be a clear year 1 anymore, as a variety of calendars, etc. It may be hard to tell where one ends and the other begins, and that could be ideal. The current Eton, like the Hydra, is just one soul. Almost certainly the Eton will end up with 2 when we get there. At least, it seems like they are mostly depicted as arguing. I have no idea about the Hydra. The conversation engine doesn't currently support a unit arguing with itself very well, especially in that way that distinguishes souls. That would be part of that update. The next question comes in from DPH Kraken, and they say, did the Hippo Man wrestler in the trailer organically accept to come with, or was there some manipulation behind the scenes? I tend to have trouble recruiting in my adventure games. And Tarn's response is, we only had a few animal people portraits at the time, so we had to stage a bit to get the art we had into actual play. I tried to do it fair at first, but I had a ton of trouble finding a hippo person at all, and eventually resorted to a horrifying transformation of a human warrior bar patron. It'd be easier now that there are more portraits, and we're generally hoping to address the recruiting problem a bit before the release. The next question comes in from Pilbo and a Curious Cat, and they both ask, will portraits work with non-standard races? For example, experiments, angels, Gorlax, etc. And how will the portrait system work with modded creatures? Will there be a way to add and modify the sprite layers used to build the faces? And if none are provided, will there be some kind of stand-in? And Tarn's response is, we haven't drawn the non-standard races. We'd like to, but the portrait system works exactly like the current layer critters, like building a face instead of a whole creature. And we've added a few more layer graphics commands that function everywhere to make it work. So it'll work for mods and any creature you care to draw, including non-layer critters. And you can set up a portrait layer with one image without screwing everything else up, as the most simple way, though. The next question comes in from Telgin, and they say, what are the plans to add baby graphics for dwarves and other layered creatures? Is that on the back burner due to the level of effort? And Tarn's response is, we've already got them. I think for dwarf children and possibly also babies. I'm the bottleneck for several things like this. The next question comes in from Eric Blank, and they ask, I noticed it mentions you can click on a tile to open a context menu for that tile. But does that option also exist on keyboard, like the way I and K keys do in the currently released adventure mode? That's pretty important functionality for keyboard-only support, I figure. And Tarn's response is, yeah, I was going to wait until I did mouse hover info, but we'll have a keyboard cursor for look that probably doubles as the context sensor. I don't want to dig the hole deeper with adventure mode. The next question comes in from Volleylol, and they say, are the armor variations seen in the most recent dev post based on item quality? And Tarn's response is, there are item quality sets as well as random variations for clothing. I prefer to also get those linked to fashion-type terms in text, but I haven't done that, so they'll be random for now, variant plus item quality. The next question comes in from Pilbo, and they say, the Walrus Man is described as a legless person with the head and back flippers of a walrus, and the tag Animal Person legless, but in the new sprites, he clearly has legs. It's the same with the Elephant Seal Man, but not the Leopard Seal Man or Harp Seal Man. The Snail Man is kind of the opposite and should have legs, but its sprite shows it as legless. Are the animal people going to be updated to match their sprites, or is that just a not important detail to you? And Tarn's response is, yeah, there are some errors there from my poor communication with the artist, because we were doing so many things at once. My fault. And yeah, for whatever reason, we did decide early on that snail people should have legs and slug people shouldn't. And I failed to communicate that. The next question comes in from Immortal D, and they say, has working on premium adventure mode allowed you to make any progress towards restoring keyboard cursor in Fortress mode? And Tarn's response is, yeah, the adventure mode stuff isn't directly related, despite me working to have keyboard enabled there. But Putnam's already got some keyboard stuff working in Fort mode on some additional menus. It's already in progress. The next question comes in from Rorax, and they say, any recent programming discoveries or new approaches since Putnam has joined? And has there been any movement towards automating game tests before releases? And Tarn's response is, nothing recently as I recall. Putnam might have a more interesting response, however. I've been in Menuland, though Putnam has also been in Menuland, and no movement in that direction regarding automation. I was hoping to start at some point after one of the recent releases. The next question comes in from Beeg, and they say, I remember in an interview earlier this year that you said you may sneak in small additions related to future content as you continue the updates at hand. Is there any chance next year, after Adventure Mode comes out, we get another magical side activity, like the Divination Dice? And Tarn's response is, we'll see. We have plotted several pathways forward that will interact with the April deadline. If we don't get to the coolest stuff, it'll still come in right after. The next question comes in from Randomizer, and they say, when you get to the map rewrite, how far do you intend to go to change the current system of mining? Right now, a large number of tiles cleared do not drop stone. This can be annoying when you mine an ore vein and see a large number of tiles not drop ore. This seems like a quick fix or something. Do you intend to overhaul later? I could see a couple dwarves mining and another dwarf loading a minecart and taking the unwanted rubble out of the mine. We already have minecarts. We already have dumping zones too. You might have to tweak how quantum stockpiling works, but it could be done. Quantum stockpiling also seems like a quick fix that will be overhauled later. And Tarn's response is, having stone drop everywhere would be an FPS problem, as I understand it. And it also creates more hauling jobs, or more stone to hide, which is also unsatisfactory. Which is bad for the game. I know a lot of people want harder mining though, now that we have literal difficulty settings. Perhaps this is more easily in the cards, but it won't relate to the map rewrite at all. And that brings us to the end of this month's Future of the Fortress, and the first Future of the Fortress of 2024, as well as the rather somber writings from Zach at the start, but an optimistic writing from Tarn about sales. If you enjoyed this month's episode of the Future of the Fortress, I encourage you to go take part in the Q&As yourself. Once again, there's a link down in the description of this video. And honestly, thank you very much, everybody, for joining me for yet another year of these videos. I've made them for more than 2 years now, and I have no intention of stopping. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.